No, but the CD one has it's really short.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah, we want that.
We ask you to write them down. It's so complicated.
Comes on Friday.
Hi, I'm so good. How are you?
Good to see you too.
I haven't seen you forever.
It's been a long time.
I haven't been to Andy's New Year's Eve party in like 7 years.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Awesome. I actually heard you were working on the campaign.
Yes, I love it. I'm so excited to be back.
Super cool. Because were you out in DC?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I went back to school to graduate and then went back to work for Angie. So
Nice.
yeah.
Awesome. So good to see you.
It's good to see you too. When they walk in, I'm kind of like out the door. This
Just like the last one.
I gave some thought
I did not see anybody, no, I didn't see anybody in these restaurants filming on that camera. If someone had a cell phone, you know, I wasn't. I'm asking you to see. Thanks. Simple as that. Thanks. You know what, if I see anyone using a cell phone, I would ask them to use it. Get it?
I'll be there. I'm a delegate. Number 3. I'm running for 20.
I did not want to have you take that on. I think we're about ready to begin. You can have a seat.
Okay, well, I had jokes on it, so I didn't just, yeah.
Oh, you too.
Oh, thank you. Oh, very good.
but I don't like to be that negative, so I don't want
Like when you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome for those of you who are holdovers. Thanks for sticking with us. And for those of you new, I'm Nicole Bidston. I am the president or chair of MN-02 and would like to welcome you to today's forum. And I'm going to turn it over to Deb Hexa and Jen Seiler, who organized the event.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming to the CD2 part of the forum. Just letting you guys know that all participants and panelists and potential candidates and announced candidates were invited to this event. Angie Craig is here, so we thank her for coming and saying yes. Jeff Urban was invited but was unable to make it, and Representative Jason Lewis was also invited as a potential panelist, and we did not hear back from Jason Lewis. So we are happy to have Angie Craig here today, and with that we will get started.
So we're going to start, we have some ground rules as we talked about earlier. They're listed in your program. The ground rules are a little different than when we had a panel of candidates. However, we're still going to adhere to some of them. We're asking, this is a forum. In answering questions, we're asking the candidate to provide information on her own positions. The panelists will not be making comments about other candidates or their positions or experience. We just want to learn about Angie and what she has as her positions and experience. And if you recall, we had this handy bell for the last one to time things. You do not have to endure that. We have free reign to answer questions, and we anticipate that this part will take about a half hour, a little bit more. So we should have ample time to ask about the same number of questions as we did for the last one. So, Angie, thank you.
So yeah, a few prior to this, just like the other candidates, we did send the same email to CD2 candidates and potential candidates, which asked them to give an opening comment first, followed by the 2 pre-planned questions that you will see in the program. And so we'll start there. So if you would like to give your opening comments first introduction.
I got to get rid of the desk too. I don't sit well, that's what you should know. Thank you so much. It's such an honor and a privilege to be back with you. I had an opportunity to be down in New Prague a few months ago, and when I arrived at that particular meeting, I walked in and there were probably 100 people in the room that day. And I made the joke of, you know, did we have 100 voters for Angie Craig at the time? And I'm just stunned that everywhere I go throughout this congressional district, I use this in my media interviews. In fact, I talked to the Star Tribune just this last week, and I used the New Prague Community Action Network as an example of where around the district we are seeing just such incredible enthusiasm and activism. I'm back here fighting one more time because you are. You have stood up to say we are going to change the course and the direction of this country over the last several months and over the last year. I'm back running for Congress, number one, because we're going to win in 2018, and number two, because there is so much left to fight for. Many of you know that I've had to fight a little bit in my life, in my own personal life. The mobile home parks that I grew up in, that was affordable housing to our family. We had to fight to make sure that we could find a place, my mom did as a single mom, where she could raise her 3 kids in affordable housing. I fought my way to a public college by working 2 jobs at McDonald's and at a local shoe shop. I fought 20 years ago when another state thought that maybe I shouldn't raise my son Josh, who was adopted, because he had 2 moms. There will never be another fight that difficult for me in my life, to wake up every single day for almost 3 years and not know whether the son that you're raising is going to be there to put to bed that night. My own view of 2018 is that the time for pettiness among any elected leader is over. We have got to work on the things that are right for Minnesota. And those things in my mind are good jobs and the job skills that we're gonna need to build a 21st century economy. Healthcare that people can afford, and it's there when they need it, and it doesn't bankrupt them, and it doesn't bankrupt the people who love them. Public education and affordable college. Everything I just mentioned are kitchen table issues. If you don't have a job, if you can't support your family, if your kids aren't gonna have a better life than you have, then this country is not delivering on its promise. And I want to be a member of Congress who works every single day to make sure it doesn't matter how much money you're born into, color of your skin, who you love, where you worship, that doesn't determine where you're going to go in this country. The only thing that should matter is how hard you're willing to work and your own will to succeed. And as a member of Congress, that's what I'm going to fight for. Now, I ran the 3rd closest race in the country in 2016. We came 1.8% short of winning in a Republican wave year. What I can tell you, what I know, is not going to be a Republican wave year in 2018. And I look forward to working with you to make sure that we win this seat in this election cycle. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Angie. So the first 2 questions that we sent to you ahead of time, we'll start with the first. Being given the deep partisan divide in Washington, D.C. and across our country, what will you do to bridge this gap and find common ground on the issues facing our country?
Well, my first reaction is you don't find anything unless you're looking for it. And you certainly don't find it in Washington, D.C. if you're not looking for it. So it really starts with listening to my constituents. I have committed to having at least 1 public meeting per month as a member of Congress. You can call it a town hall. Some of them will be called town halls. Some of them may be other public meetings just like this. And I plan on inviting everyone. Not everybody is going to agree with everything that I have to say or the way I voted or how I think. But I can tell you it is my job. You will be my boss. It is my job to show up and to listen to you. Tom Emmer and I, who is the congressman up in the 6th, he and I disagree on some pretty fundamental things. But I bet if he and I sit down, we can find some things we agree on, like the need for infrastructure investment in this country, in roads, in highways, in bridges, in broadband for rural Minnesota, in water infrastructure investments. I bet we could find that if we sit down together. I bet we could sit down together and think of the job skills that this state is going to need in the future, and we could come together around investing in apprenticeship programs and investing in community college and investing in technical education in this country again. I am going to be looking for those issues where we can find common ground with the other side. I believe we can find common ground on common sense gun violence prevention in this country. And I believe if we send people to Washington from both sides who think this way, that we can find common ground. I know I find common ground on an issue like that, which is a contentious issue, right? My family's a member of the Egan Gun Club. My boys trap shoot. You know, I know I can go right now there and listen to people who hunt all the time, and we can find common ground together. So that's the kind of member of Congress that I'm going to be and how I'm going to approach it. Thank you.
So the second question is, what are your top 1 to 2 priorities that you believe need to be tackled at the federal congressional level that will have the greatest impact on your constituents here in Minnesota?
Well, there's so many issues, and I really did spend most of my summer just listening to people. Last summer, just listening. What are you not hearing from us that we need to be talking more about? And so the 2 issues that I'm going to talk about, and then I'll tell you why, are around education and healthcare. So I spent the last 10 years in Minnesota, and the last 4 years of that role, responsible for 16,000 jobs, and 4,000 of them were right here in Minnesota. If we don't have the jobs, if we don't have the skills to do the work in a congressional district, those jobs are going somewhere else. They're going to a different state, or God forbid, they're going to a different country. And so America, in order to put its citizens to work in the United States, we have got to start investing in education again in this country. And that doesn't just mean public education K through 12, which I'll talk about in a minute. It also means we have to invest in technical skills. We've got to invest in post-secondary, whether that be a 4-year university, which is good for a lot of people. I have 4 sons, by the way, 20, 20, 19, and 15. And it's pretty quiet at home right now because 3 of them are off to their post-secondary educations. 2 of them are in a traditional state 4-year program getting degrees. And the 3rd one, who's off in post-secondary, is getting his associate's degree and his advanced manufacturing certificate. He loves to work with his hands. This is the right thing for Josh. And so we've got to, I think, adjust the way we're thinking in our high schools, and we've got to make sure that we're investing again in both post-secondary technical education and in bringing down the cost of higher education in this country. Because when I told you my own story about working 2 jobs to put myself through college, a state college, tuition back then, 28 years ago, 29 now, it was about $3,500 a semester. You could do that when I came up. You can't do that anymore in this country. You come out of college with masses of debt. You're paying as much in a student loan as you would be to buy your first house or your first car. So education is a big deal to me, and I don't want to skip public education because I believe, and I'll tell you why so passionately. I'm married to a teacher. My mom's a teacher. But beyond that, I believe this country has a responsibility to invest more money in special education. We committed to fund up to 40% of special education costs in this country. We have never funded more than 15%. That's putting pressure on your general operating budgets at the local level. That's putting pressure for you to come back and have to pass another levy for more school funding. This is just a vicious cycle that we've got to stop, and this is one way we can do it. I often say I'm the mom of a son who's on the autism spectrum. And you wouldn't want to put an IEP mom up against anybody because they would win every single time. We are fierce when we advocate for our children. You are getting a member of Congress in me who knows how to advocate for my own child, and I'm taking that commitment and passion to Washington to advocate for all of our children. The other thing, healthcare. Healthcare is a huge issue. As the head of HR for a major company, I had responsibility for our health plans in the U.S., but I also had responsibility for our employees in Germany, in the UK, and in Canada. I have firsthand experience and knowledge with a number of different healthcare systems around the country. I am absolutely committed to finding a way to get healthcare to every American. Healthcare that is affordable. The cost of healthcare has gone up at an unsustainable rate. And the thing we've been focused on as Democrats on reform is access. That's critical, it's important. But we've got to start pushing back on cost. Because that's not just an individual marketplace issue. That is an issue for every family I meet with. We need a health policy in this country that puts our families first, your family first. And that is my commitment. To do that, we're gonna have to figure out how we fix what's happening with health insurance companies today. We're gonna have to figure out how we push back on pharmaceutical companies today. We are going to have to figure out how we move our health care system forward. Now, I've talked to a lot of members of Congress who have a lot of bills. I've talked to Keith Ellison, who's got a particular bill that he just took over. I've talked to a number of other members who have bills in this Congress, and I just left Keith a little bit ago, and I told him, let's figure out how we move forward with health care. And he said to me, I want you at the table when we're figuring this out. I have 22 years of healthcare experience. I've managed in many different markets around the world, and I grew up without health insurance for a lot of my childhood. That's why this issue is so important to me and why your family and your stories matter so much. Thank you. Can you imagine? I can't imagine the other group doing that in 2 minutes. This is the benefit of showing up. I believe me, that's all I keep thinking. How did I do that in 2 minutes? I'm sure I would have figured it out.
Okay, so the rest of the, we'll just keep going with audience questions for the next few minutes. So this one was submitted by this audience, and it is, what do you believe, there were 4 kind of along the same lines submitted, so, but what do you believe is a sane approach to curtailing gun violence?
Well, look, I think there are some common sense things that we should be able to agree on as Americans, and I'm looking at the data that says a lot of Americans agree on these things, like having the Centers for Disease Control actually study the issue. That to me is kind of the most basic. If you're going to manage policy, you need data. We don't have the data, we need it. So that to me is first step. What I know is in states that require background checks on any purchase, they have about a 50% lower incidence of gun violence in those states. When you think about it, affects domestic violence, it affects completion of suicide. If you have those periods of time where it just takes a little longer, it just, you just gotta go a little further, that doesn't seem like an unreasonable request to me. And most hunters and, every legal gun owner who has no intention, they agree with you that, yeah, okay, universal background checks, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. Banning bump stocks, that's even getting some bipartisan support right now. This doesn't come up a lot now, but this whole idea of, we're gonna tell you can't fly on a commercial plane, but we're gonna let you legally buy a gun. My 19-year-old called me from college the other day after the latest shooting in Parkland, and he said, Mom, it just, it makes no sense. I can go to the drugstore and buy Sudafed, and they're gonna want my ID, and they're gonna track me. But I can go buy unlimited ammunition. So, these are some of the things that I think we've got to get the other side of the table and just have a discussion around how do we keep our kids safe? How do we keep each other safe? And of course, Amy Klobuchar has a bill around those who are convicted of domestic violence, would prohibit them from legally acquiring a firearm. To me, legal gun owners, people who hunt, this is not what that's about. And I think we just have to have that conversation. And, I would joke and say I'm all for a well-armed militia as well.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is quite long, but I don't want to ad-lib it. So, on behalf of millennials, there is a big concern among younger Americans that even if you obtain a college degree, you'll be lucky to get a decent job. Healthcare costs have shot up, and we will never see the money paid into Social Security. It is also true that nothing is free in life. Whether we receive assistance from the government or we are able to pay our own way, one way or another, we are paying more for ourselves and others than we got out of what we put in. How do you see yourself as an advocate for the millennial generation that wants to work hard but is afraid of a fruitless future?
Wow, well, I'm just gonna tell you, the millennial generation, the future is in your hands. If millennials show up to vote, it would be extraordinary in a midterm election. If we just get a 10% higher turnout among young people here in this next election cycle, we're gonna really make progress. So what I would say to you is I'm gonna fight like heck to make sure that Social Security is around. So don't dismiss it. Poverty in this country before Social Security and Medicare was abysmal among our senior population. And you better bet, as Democrats, I think we fight like heck to make sure that those benefits survive. There are others who don't use the word benefits to describe those things. But how many of you had a W-2 and paid Social Security taxes? How many of you paid Medicare and your employers? These are your benefits that you've earned. Think about it that way. And if you're a young person paying that today, that's how we think about those things. So I take a vision of the future of if we can bring the next generation technologies and have them right here in America. Let's take one example, renewable energy. I am not going to cede energy growth, renewable energy growth to China. I am not going to let them have it or India have it or someone else have it because this administration or others have their head in the sand about where growth, economic growth is coming from. Renewable energy grew 17% in Minnesota last year. 17%. You name me another industry that is growing at that pace. We need to be promoting the industries that are growing. We need to be making sure that we're putting them right here, not just in Minnesota, but in CD2. My last job, I was a recruiter. You better bet I'm going to be recruiting jobs for Minnesotans, recruiting startup companies, making sure that they have access to capital. But the question is right from the sense of what are the opportunities for young people today? Should they be paying interest rates on their college debt 3 and 4 times what businesses pay on their debt? Should they be paying the full cost of a college tuition that is rising at a pace that I think is unreasonable? Absolutely not. There's a bill called the In the Red Act. It was introduced on the Senate side, and this would essentially extend education in this country to a K through 14 system. Years 13 and 14, you would get an associate's degree or a technical degree in those last 2 years, and that would be part of our commitment to Americans. That's what I'm talking about when I say we need to invest in Americans again. We are no longer doing that. And so all of these things are related, and I could just keep going on and on. I mean, affordable housing. No matter where I go in this congressional district, affordable housing, affordable daycare, sometimes even access to daycare. It's a really big deal. Remember when I said we need to be focused on kitchen table issues, the things that really impact people's life? Even if you can get a job somewhere, if you can't find an affordable place to live or daycare for your kids because the wait list is 9 months, and I've been to places in our district where this is the case. Red Wing is having a major crisis right now with this. If you can't find a place for your kids to go to care while you go to work, you can't move there. It's keeping people from moving and living in rural areas of our congressional district. So all of these things are interrelated, and you need people in Congress who understand that there is no magic answer to any of this. It's all interrelated.
Thank you. Okay, this is our last question from the audience, and last call if anyone has another one to submit out there on a note card. Money in campaigns. what to do about dark money, PACs, lobbyists, and Citizens United? Are we doomed?
Well, losing the Supreme Court was a really big deal because our opportunity to overturn Citizens United with the current Supreme Court is pretty low. I have said that I would certainly co-sponsor a bill that would overturn Citizens United, but that would require a different court or a constitutional amendment. And as you well know, getting that constitutional amendment ratified may be a challenge. But if you look on my campaign website, I spell that out, but I also spell out, all right, so if that's where we are, how do we at least provide some transparency? The cost of congressional races has risen threefold since 2010. And that is because of the Citizens United ruling. The dark money, we expect at least $10 million to be spent by the other side in this race for Congress in 2018. Why is that? Because corporations and individuals can contribute to super PACs and independent expenditure committees in unlimited amounts of money with absolutely no disclosure of who's providing that money. So if we can't change the law, what we could do is change disclosure laws. We could require any publicly traded company that contributes to a super PAC or an IE or to a campaign to have to file and disclose that with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We could require online advertising to have the same disclosure requirements as television advertising. Who put it up? Who paid for it to be there? We could put it in the hands of the consumers to say, we don't like that the company I just visited is doing that. I'm not going to visit them anymore. So there are things that we could do, and we've spelled out a whole list of reforms on the campaign finance side that I would promote as a member of Congress. But there's also reforms on the governance side. It's not just the money, it's the way Washington is actually working today. And that is, there is an endless revolving door of lobbyists working in Congress. They go in, young people, they get a couple years experience, they go work for a lobbyist. They go work for the lobbyist, they come in and they work for the member of Congress. You name me a member of Congress who hasn't, after their service to our nation, gone to work as a lobbyist and profited from that service to the nation. And I have proposed that we sponsor a bill to outlaw that. It's that simple. If I represent you, it should be because I want to represent your interests and your values. It should not be because down the road, I want to get something out of it. And I've not only said I would sponsor a bill to outlaw it, I've said, here are the 6 things I will voluntarily sign up to never do. And one of those is to lobby this Congress, to profit from my service to you. And so these are things, you know, maybe Citizens United is a big boulder up a hill, but if we sit here and talk long enough about what we could do around it, I bet we could improve the disclosure and transparency and stop some of that dark money from coming into campaigns today.
Thank you.
So I don't think we're doomed.
Good. So, all right, well, I think we are at the point where we ask if you have any closing remarks or anything that we haven't discussed that you want to make sure that we know about, but we defer to you. So
Well, thank you. I just want to thank the organizers so much for putting this on, and the members of the New Craig Community Action Network. You've built this group in such an amazing way, and I'm very, very proud to be able to come here and speak to you again today. I just want you to know that we are so optimistic that we are going to win this seat in 2018. And it would be my privilege and honor to represent our values in the United States Congress. And I look forward to recruiting each of you, should I be fortunate enough next Saturday to be the DFL endorsed candidate for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District. So we will need your help. It's a lot of doors we need to knock, even in red parts of the district. There's a lot of doors we need to knock, there's a lot of calls we need to make. We won't do this alone, we will do it because of all of you. And thank you so much, it's such a pleasure.
Great.
Thank you.
We're so grateful to have you, Angie. And thank you to everyone for sticking it out for the better part of your Sunday afternoon, but we're so pleased that this was a great success, and we look forward to having more of these conversations because certainly it's all in our hands as well. So thank you, everybody. And there's more treats.
Submit in writing, stick around, and Ms. Craig is going to be staying for a little while, but help yourself to our questions and certainly answer your questions then. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, what
You've heard.
Veterans are interested, we're charging kids 8 to 12, some of them signing. Congratulations to her, but it's not right. It's not right. If we could eliminate 2 years of that debt, that'd be a big deal. Can't refinance it, you can't write it off in a bankruptcy. I don't know why. It really is. Yes, ma'am.
More water?
Sorry?
Are we allowed to get more water?
I think so. I'm gonna take one too.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
So thirsty.
Yeah, I know.
It's like so hot in here.
A lot of producers. It is going to be a really big deal.
Now, the House of Representatives do it, right, to moderate it or to eliminate it?
Well, the truth is we're going to have to try to moderate this administration, by winning the midterms and being able to block some of the work that they're trying to do. And it's complicated because you get, labor and ag in conflict, right? The truth is we should have more fair labor laws and trade agreements, but you don't do it this way. Tweet it out. This is not how trade agreements should be negotiated. Like in a reality TV show.
Like you wake up and go, what did he tweet today?
Yeah.
Oh, and we're going for,
Or diplomacy.
Yeah, or diplomacy. Well, our farmers have already faced 5-year historic lows in commodities pricing. They are already facing tremendous pressure. And so the point is we need to have fair labor laws, trade agreements, but this isn't the way you go about negotiating.
from a personal perspective, the company I worked for had established manufacturing in China.
Yeah.
And one of the problems that we had was exactly that standard technology. So it's a real problem. But this is stupid. This is idiotic about eliminating it.
Right. Yeah, well, it's and I mean, this is a big part of Minnesota's economy. And so, I was just on a hog farm recently. And again, their 2 biggest issues are, making sure that safety net in the farm bill, and even that's become political in a way that it used to never be. We believe that farmers should have a safety net in this country. And today, it's
Because all of us depend on their produce.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean,
They go under it doesn't.
Then, yeah, what are you going to
it
do with a bunch of
affects all
starving
Americans.
Americans?
It affects all Americans, and that's what we have to, I think, remind ourselves and our neighbors. It affects all of us if they have to. It's infrastructure improvements that would help our farmers too. To get their
So how do you see the
services
government? How do you see government being able to do that? I mean, there are a lot of great innovation has come out of the private sector, and the government can be helpful, but in some ways it can be a hindrance too. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's got to be a balance, right? I mean, it's balanced regulation. that, enables us to keep our food safe, our healthcare safe, our water safe, without over-regulating those businesses or Americans too. I mean, it really is a balance that you have to think through. At least the best achieves the balance. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, we have to go. Okay.
Go to our next event.
Sorry.
Drive safely.
Anyway, thank you so much.
I missed your question on, so you were asking about,
Well, with the current tariffs that he's
Oh,
threatening,
tariffs, yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's what the Chinese have come back with is 25% tariff on soybeans. I mean, that's nobody's acting on it at this point. This is all bumping chests and stuff.
yeah.
So, my understanding is that Congress is the one that really implements tariffs, unless it's a national security issue. So what can the House of Representatives and Congress do?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good
The Commerce Committee is what call it, not Health and Human Services. When you're talking about the finances of healthcare.
Sorry.
My husband's card
Take everything you want. I have more if we run out.
But anyway, so how it got on, because it was that day they were discussing about.
Hi. Good to see you too. It was great.
And how it got on there is that the two members.
You don't need more?
I only have one card.
That's fair. You look great on live.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So are you with the New Prague Community Action Network?
No,
or-
I'm with Angie's campaign.
Yeah?
Yep, I'm one of the organizers for this area. So.
Cool.
Yep.
Is that like a volunteer or paid position?
No, full time.
Wow, I'm sorry. I hope
Yeah,
it's
no,
like,
absolutely. It's a valid question. I mean,
Yeah. So many are like unpaid.
yeah, I mean, Angie values her labor's endorsement.
Oh, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she makes sure that working for her is
Awesome.
fairly,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's exciting. I mean, we had a large campaign last year, and I expect it will be a pretty big campaign again this time.
Here, but then she must have run off, but I'm
Yeah, she dropped off Angie today. Angie was at the DFL Disability Caucus.
Okay. And she has another event again.
Angie's been running around all day, every day, for especially the last few days have been particularly busy.
Well, I'm sure because like her endorsing convention is next Saturday.
Exactly, that definitely helps make it more busy.
Yeah, wow. You still pretty confident that she'll get the endorsement, right?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, after 2016, I could have every delegate standing in the room right now and have every single one raise their hand if they're going to vote for her, and I'd still be terrified because I just don't trust anything at this point.
Yeah, was it kind of a landslide that she got the endorsement in 2016?
In 2016, she faced more challengers and I would argue more serious challengers.
Wow.
But they all recognized that Angie was the right one to do it and dropped out even before caucus and endorsed her. So it's very weird this time around. Because like I said, they all were more viable candidates, in my opinion.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. But yeah, we have a challenger. I mean, we'll see what happens.
The crazy thing is I don't even really know anything about him, so...
Well, he doesn't show up to his community stuff, and he wasn't involved before he decided to run.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just kind of like
Exactly. Yep. So
very
it's
cool.
interesting.
Good. Well, I'm already signed up for all this too, so... Yeah, cool. Nice to meet you. Yeah, take care. Thank you so much for organizing. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
cool.
Glad
Yeah,
to hear.
sure.
Good question.
I realized it was kind of a tough, long.
No, but it was great. It set up a lot of issues, and I think it was a really important question to ask.
The one thing that's kind of hard is like, I always feel like they're like, it's like a philosophy gets presented, and but then it's like, I don't know, I don't feel like this like, as like, you really want to hear like tangible,
right?
Like,
nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and like, but I suppose it's something you have to really sit down and pause it takes a long time. But I don't know, it's always hard to get like a good answer, and I don't know, that's a genuine concern. Like when I was 25 years old, I broke my back, and I have medical bills after medical bills after medical bills, and I feel like I work hard to pay my medical bills, but I have to go to the doctor's office more to try to make my body better from working so hard. So it's just like, how do you ever get out of that, you know? And like yeah, exactly. And I've been a hardworking American my whole life, and I'm just like, but then honestly, with the Affordable Care Act, my medical bills have gone way up as a young person because you're generally like healthier. And so I'm paying for other people now. It's like it was hard enough when I was paying just for myself, and I'm paying for other people. So it is kind of, you know, when I talk about free, that's what I wish that she said more about nothing is, you know, nothing is free in life. And how we, like, I think it's like Americans, you know, just think that, okay, the government's going to pay for that. But who's the government, where does the government get their money? Oh, that's right, from the people. From your neighbor. From your hardworking neighbor.
Right.
And I think some people forget that. I don't know. That's a big one for me. I'm not even married with kids right now, so I'm like, good luck, you know? Yeah? This was cute. I like that was the thing. You guys did an awesome job. It was really nice. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
No.
Nice to have.
I came over and somebody asked it.
Well, that's good.
So,
I want to get to a debrief.
So, yeah, isn't that sweet?
How much is that?
Oh, it was like $80. But I got like a tripod and the microphone, and I actually have different lenses too.